And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to IT Career in Australia YouTube channel. And today's topic is visa pathways for tech professionals in Australia. Thank you so much for finding some time to join me this evening. Please don't forget to introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversation with your questions and comments, or at least say hi in the comments so we know that you're here, and maybe mention your name if you have some interesting, nickname on the YouTube. So I'm Jana Martins. I'm currently working in IT consultancy. So I'm passionate about learning more about the present and future of the tech industry, and obviously always eager to share my latest findings and insights with you on this channel. So again, tonight we're going to talk about visa pathways for tech professionals in Australia. And Manuela going to share her professional advice and also her personal experience. People quite often ask me these questions, especially on LinkedIn, people messaging and saying like, Jana, I want a job in Australia, how I can do it. I can't answer this question, guys. I definitely can't help you with like visa sponsorship or anything. That's why I got Manuela today in this on this talk, so she can answer these questions. Yeah. So please, if you ever, reached out with these questions, now you know who to address them. So before I'll pass it over to Manuela to introduce herself, just want to quickly remind you we're streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're also streaming on 2 YouTube channels today. And if you miss the stream, no worries. You can catch the replay by subscribing to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. As you know, I go live every Wednesday there with different experts from my network talking about various things around IT career, IT transitions, job search, IT career progressions, and so on. So also, I encourage you to ask as many questions as you want today, but just make sure to stay on the topic. And we have a little surprise at the end of the stream as well, so make sure stick to the end. So that's probably enough of me. Quite a few people saying hi. Yash is here, Barty is here, Matthew's here, Alex here, Alok is here. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for saying hi. If you haven't say hi in the comments, please, I really encourage you to do so. It makes us feel good that you're here and you're listening. So anyway, Manuela, please, over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Jana. My name is Manuela Seiberth, and I'm the director at Aspire Immigration Services. I'm a migration agent, and I'm also a migrant to Australia. So I'm originally from Germany, and I migrated to Australia in 2009. So it's quite a while ago now. And my own journey inspired me to help other people. And I've been running my business since 2016. So it's been almost 8 years now that I've been assisting migrants with, migrating to Australia, the whole visa pathway. And we also work with businesses who sponsor migrants from overseas. And especially now, post-pandemic, lots of businesses are really looking for qualified people to employ, and they're willing to sponsor more than ever.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Manuel. We have quite a few more people saying hi. Thank you, guys. It's really nice. Chris is here. James is here, recruiter from New Zealand. Graham is here as well. Thank you, guys, for saying hi. So I guess without further delays, let's dive into the topic. So obviously you already mentioned that, you're working now as a migration agent. So just before, I guess, we dive into this overview, because such a, massive, sensitive topic, I think there is a quick disclaimer here for our today's talk.
Yeah, so look, we're in the legal space, and so the disclaimer is really just to say that today is general advice only, so I will not be able to give personalized advice for individuals. And I still will be providing a lot of value in this presentation and in this conversation with Jana. However, if you want tailored personal advice, then I recommend to book in for a consultation, and I will be providing information later on.
Definitely, but you are welcome to ask questions, guys. So we're here obviously to ask general questions, but please just don't expect that we're gonna go through whole your whole your situation, whole your history, what you're doing and where. But we'll definitely try to give the general advice. So there's a few more people joining. Musa's here, Adam's here, Francis here, James is here as well. Thank you guys for saying hi. Okay, Manuela, before we dive into all these different visa types and things, tell us just, I guess, your story, how you migrated to Australia, like what kind of visa you went through. I'm actually migrated to Australia in 2008, I think, yeah, 9, so 2009, same as you. But I didn't do any, sponsorship or any sponsor visa, so it was easy for me. So I didn't need to go through all these things as well. And people asking me about, skill migration stuff. I can't help you guys. Can't help you. So Manuela, over to you. Tell us your story.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so there we are. So I finished university in Germany back in 2008. And then I thought it'd be a great idea to go to Australia to travel for a bit. And so I came to Australia in April 2009 and did the whole backpacking thing, arrived in Sydney, and then I was traveling around Australia for 2 years, on and off, working and traveling, and really, really fell in love with Australia and the people and the lifestyle and all of that. And then I looked into, okay, how can I stay longer? Because, my second year visa was coming to an end. And because I already had my qualifications, and back then in 2009, the legislation was different. So then my main option was to find an employer to sponsor me, which happened for me in Darwin, Northern Territory. So I was sponsored in the international law industry, or in the international law sector, by the Red Cross Australia. And from there, I was on a sponsorship visa. Mind you, like, it sounds so, oh yeah, I did that. I know what it's like. It is not easy. However, it is achievable. You just really have to do, the work. You have to apply, and you just, you get a lot of no's, but I always say to my clients, you only have to get one yes. So I did that. I got my sponsorship. I worked for the Red Cross, became a permanent resident. And then in 2014, I became a citizen. So it all happened really fast. I'm a very driven, ambitious person. So my goal really was citizenship, which I achieved in less than 5 years. I did work in international law. I worked in government, Australian local government, for the Department of Health and the Department of Transport. I also was a journalist in Germany as well as in Australia. And eventually I was so inspired by my own journey and by my challenges, because I had a lot of challenges in my own immigration journey, that I became an immigration agent. And in 2016, I founded my first ever business and company, and it's now grown. Now I have a team. I have a team of lawyers, migration agents, education agents, and we're dealing with all visa types. And there's over 100 different visa types in the Australian immigration system. So it's keeping me busy for sure. And I'm having a lot of support from my team.
Yeah, they definitely not make it easy here, and they love changing it every year as well. So that's the most exciting bit. That is always something new every year. And you thought you're all good, and you get your points, you're on the right track, and here we go. New rules come in, and new professions on the list, and so on. So it's definitely hard to keep up when you're doing it, by yourself. So
yes.
yeah, coming back, I guess, back to tech industry and IT industry. So I think there's a lot of people there who might be, thinking about moving to Australia or backpacking at the moment on a student visa. So at the moment, right now, what sort of occupations in the tech industry is actually listed and can get a visa in Australia?
Yeah. So the IT and tech sector is a high priority in Australia. So I've only written down a few. So these are only examples. So if you're now watching this and thinking, oh, my occupation is not on here, this is only examples. So there is a lot, like probably at least say 100 in the bigger picture of IT and tech occupations. And like I said, IT and tech is a sector that is getting prioritized by the Australian government because there's such a shortage in the industry in Australia. So if you're unsure, if you didn't see your occupation on that list, it was only 5 or 6, then feel free to reach out, because if you are a professional in the IT and tech sector, I would say there is very good chances, especially if you have formal qualifications and work experience, there's very good chances that you can get a visa in Australia.
Yeah, so that's always encouraging, at least to know that you have opportunity to do that, and as we mentioned, there is over like 100 different types of visa at the moment. So I guess it would be great to talk about what sort of visa types out there, for people to get a bit of a better understanding. And also, I guess, understand a bit of a difference between those visa types, especially, when we're talking about IT, is any specifics for IT, or it doesn't matter, I guess, if you're IT on a different industry, what sort of visas you can apply?
Yeah. So when it comes to immigration, it really depends on especially if you're going for a visa based on your occupation, on your skills, it really depends on your qualifications and the work experience that you have. And then there is a lot of different options. So, for example, there is employer-sponsored visas. As the name says, you need an employer to sponsor you. Some people feel quite discouraged by that, thinking, oh, it's too hard. I can say that from my own experience, it is definitely not easy, but it is possible. And so I've done it, and I've had a lot, like many, many clients who have done it too. So the employer-sponsored visa, or employer-sponsored visas, because there's different types, can be a really, really good option, because oftentimes there's, for example, lower English language skills, and just in general, I don't want to say lower requirements. However, there is different requirements. So this is, for example, what we do in the assessment when we have a consultation with clients, that we really see, okay, where are you at? What do you have? And what visa options are suitable for you? So that is employer-sponsored visas.
Can
So
I just double check with those employer-sponsored visas? It doesn't matter if you in Australia or outside Australia. So obviously you can be already here on some student visa or something, and you can start looking for a sponsor, or you can try to find a sponsor when you're outside of Australia as well. Yeah.
Both, yes. So both options are available. The process is different for people who are onshore versus people who are offshore. And yet, especially in the IT and tech sector, that's why I've been so excited about this event today, because there's just so much opportunity. There is really, even if you're offshore, if you have your qualifications and your experience, then please, if you really want this, then give it a really good shot, do the work, apply for jobs, and also, we can assist as well with everything else in regards to the visa. So when you're offshore, it may take a little bit longer, but the process is, once the sponsorship starts, is very much the same. And also the costs are also the same. So there's no, it's not more expensive or cheaper if you're onshore or offshore. It's just maybe a little bit more work for the person who's offshore, and also it may take a bit longer. But other than that, it is definitely possible. We have helped many, many clients, individuals as well as business clients, who have been through this process of having someone offshore coming into Australia. And especially at the moment, the Australian government, because of the big shortage in Australia, they're trying to really process the visas as fast as possible.
Yeah. And do you think in general it's still harder, like, to find obviously when you hear like on the student visa, it's in general easier to find a sponsor because you can talk and speak with real people. Do you find it's like obviously much harder process when you're overseas, because you can't really just like knock on the door and talk with people and go to events? You basically have to just deal with like online, like emails, LinkedIn, and so on. So does it make a massive difference?
I would say maybe not a massive difference, because so for example, I'm an employer too, and for me it's really important that people have the required skills. And if I wouldn't find the skills in Australia, I would definitely also more prioritize someone overseas over someone who's like right here at my doorstep, right? Even though it may take longer and it's maybe a little bit more challenging, but at the end of the day, it will be an asset to my business. So, and I find that employers and businesses and organizations in Australia really are prepared and willing to go through this process. However, having said that, of course, if there is an international student or a backpacker, like a working holiday visa maker, and they have the skills and the talent, then of course, I mean, if they're right here, right there, of course they get snapped up by the employer. So yes, it is easier because you're more direct. You can actually, attend an office, go to an interview in person, and yet, especially in the IT and tech sector, I mean, we are now online. So I would say people are really used to the online process with Zoom calls, and the vetting through LinkedIn and all of that. So it all depends. So sometimes people are not quite ready, to go directly to an employer sponsored or to a skilled visa. And then we also use that step in between, for example, a student visa. And that way, someone can enter Australia, study, maybe, get some more qualifications. And then also, meanwhile, they have work rights. And then they can, start working for an employer. The employer gets to know them. And so there will be networking and connections established.
Yeah. Amir asking a question. I'm working with TSS subclass 482 primary. And I'm getting call messages about opportunities from recruiters. Companies do not sponsor visa transfer. Is there any solution in addition to 189 or 190 visa?
Okay, so 482 visa transfer, is there any solution?
So basically, so if I understand correctly, is also I'm trying to understand more about visas myself. So 482 is the employer-sponsored visa. So if you're on this visa, you can ask the other employer to sponsor you. So if you want to leave your job, you need to find another person to sponsor you.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And so one thing that I don't understand in that question is companies do not sponsor visa transfer.
I mean, like, I think he's talking with recruiters, but then recruiters saying, like, we don't have any opportunities for visa transfer at the moment.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, so there is a lot happening at the moment in the immigration space. I think you mentioned earlier changes every year. In fact, there's changes every day, Jana. There is so much happening, and currently it's actually sometimes it's to the detriment. Currently, the climate is more that the government and the Department of Home Affairs is of service and really trying to assist the Australian economy, the Australian employers. So with regards to that question and the 4H2 situation, so sometimes when someone gets sponsored, so the 4H2 visa is a visa usually for 4 years, and then the previous legislation was after 3 years, someone can then apply for permanent residency. So there has been a change in that, and now it's already after 2 years that people can apply for PR. And there has now come another change that the transfer in between employers is also going to be better facilitated, because I think the government really understands the complexities of the matter. So applicants will now have more time to find a new employer. And so there's going to be lots of changes, and I don't want to say it's become easier, but it's definitely there's going to be more support and more time and more flexibility. Yes. Yeah.
And I guess it's also, as you mentioned, it depends of that like skill set, I guess. Unfortunately, if you have a skill set that it's a lot of people have a similar skill set, obviously your chances is lower, because most of the companies still prefer, if they don't need to sponsor and they have a pool of candidates, they will go to the pool of candidates that have available. And I think that's kind of common sense in a way. So they will always, if they have a pool of candidates, they will choose the one that already have a PR. But if they're struggling to fill the positions, then they will obviously will go with the visa options. So yeah, it's about, I guess, positioning yourself, positioning your skills as well. It's not only about the visa in this situation.
Yes. What I find also is sometimes people are not aware, like employers / recruiters, as well as applicants, people going through the process, are not, they just have heard of one visa option, for example, the 4H2, and we get a lot of really high caliber clients, and they want to apply for a 4H2, for example, which is a good visa, but the 189 skilled independent, where you don't need an employer, you don't need a state sponsorship, nothing, you just really purely have your skills, is a lot better, of course, right? And they're just unaware of it because they haven't heard of it, and they think, oh no, I'm not qualified for it, and then we do the assessment, and then it turns out, well, actually you are qualified for it. So there is a lot of misconceptions, I guess, on lots of different factors, because maybe, well, for various reasons, but one of the reasons, I guess, because there's just so many changes and people, I think, feel overwhelmed and they just can't keep up, And for me, as a migration agent, that is what I do on a daily basis, right? And I've been doing this for a long time. And also, I'm a person, I love change. So this is really a quality that serves me really well in that profession, because I thrive on, changes, because it keeps me active, it keeps my brain wired, and so I love it. Other people, they hate it, but for me, I like it. And so, yes, so there's a lot of changes. That's why it's really, really important that, especially if you think you have, your chances are not so good, then maybe it's really worth to invest into just a consultation with a migration agent, just to really get your options assessed on the legislation that is current. That's
basically, really so if we're looking here and we're talking about like skilled visas, that's the one that you collecting the points and you don't need the sponsorship from anyone, yeah?
Yes. So skilled visas is what I'm referring to is when it's points based. Okay, so it's a very different type to employer sponsored. So now we're moving on to the skilled visas and the state sponsored visas. So these visa types, they require applicants to pass a so-called points test, where you collect points. So the minimum points is 65 points currently. And it's a combination of various factors such as age, your English language skills, your qualifications, your what else did I say? And then also, for example, if you are unsure, if you have studied in Australia, and then also you get points for if you have a partner or if you are single. And so there's a lot of different various factors that play into how these points get accumulated. Now, 65 is the minimum, but it is quite a competitive visa type. So the more points, the better. Because how these visas work is, so once you have either self-assessed or by a migration agent that you have at least 65 points, then you can make an expression of interest with your points in the Skill Select database. And then the more points you have, the more likely it is to be invited to then apply for nomination.
And if you're already on 482 visa and you connect to a sponsor, can you still try to apply to the skilled visa without any nominations? Is that the option too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. Here's the option, Amir, for you. if no one's sponsoring, start collecting the points.
Yeah, and some clients do that, because the employer-sponsored visa, that is a very long commitment from both parties, and some people choose to rather do it differently. So yeah, you can either or, you can start some. It's more actually that people lodge an EOI, like some expression of interest, and then it all depends. Sometimes people have to wait a long time, and again, have been lots of changes, lots of states. So when we're talking about state-sponsored visas, that is subclass 190 and subclass 491. There has been lots of changes. So states have been, changing things around, like New South Wales, they have a new system. South Australia has changed things, Western Australia. So every state, like it used to be quite similar. And now I really feel that every state wants to shine and they, bring out their own system because it is so competitive, and they want to attract the best people and want to also retain them, want to keep them in their jurisdiction. So
it will be easier to get it in some states compared to other states because of all these differences.
Yes, well, it depends again on your occupation, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, New South Wales and Victoria, that's the southern state in Australia, they have different demands and different skills that they need versus, for example, Northern Territory and Western Australia, for example, in general. And also, the size is different. The size of population is different. So the population in Northern Territory is smaller versus in Victoria or New South Wales. So what I definitely recommend, if you go for a state-sponsored visa, you have to make a decision which state. Some people are like, oh, just anywhere. States want to be chosen. So that is my big advice. If you go for state-sponsored, make up your mind, do your research, speak to a migration agent prior to starting the application process, and then make a decision for one particular state. Yes.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions coming through, Manuela. Maybe let's try to answer a few of them. You
Sure.
already mentioned it. Also saying, Henry's here. I'd love to hear more about ICS, IPL, and other skill assessment process, especially when you've got professional experience but no formal education. I don't even know what ICS and IPL is.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start from this.
Yeah, so like I think in any profession, we talk in acronyms. So ACS is the Australian Computer Society. So let me start from the beginning. So for skilled visas, and it's in one of the slides in the visa requirements, you need a skills assessment. So for skilled visas, so whenever you see the word skilled in a visa type, that means you actually need a skills assessment, a positive skills assessment. And each occupation has their own skills assessment authorities. ACS, the Australian Computer Society, is one of the authorities. So before you even lodge your expression of interest, you need to actually have that skills assessment. That's kind of your entry ticket. And this can be quite a big hurdle, especially if people are lacking or lacking some evidence and documentation, such as formal qualifications. So for most occupations, especially in the IT and tech sector, you need qualifications, formal qualifications, and every occupation is also classified into different categories. So usually tech and IT is scale level 1, which is the highest, which requires you to have a university degree, not necessarily a master's, but a bachelor degree, all right? In order to answer the question, I would need more background. So I would like to invite that person to book a consultation. We do have a discount code at the end of this conversation. So stick with us, stay with us.
But basically, it is a little bit hard. So if you basically don't have a formal education, that gets a little bit harder, and you need to think about like where else you can pull your points from.
Correct. So just to also explain the acronym RPL, that is recognition of prior learning. But that is kind of a topic in its own. So we can talk about that for another half an hour. There's pros and cons to the RPL. What I can really recommend, if you can have formal qualifications, obviously it's not, you can't just say, oh yeah, I just got to university and study for 3 years, because depending on your age and your situation and so on. But in that instance, for example, we could look at other visa options. For example, the 4H2 employer-sponsored visa, which we mentioned earlier, sometimes does not require formal qualifications and formal education. So with a 4H2 visa, it is a lot easier to get through with just work experience. Yep, also, yep. On that overview slide with the different visa types on the bottom, it says training visa. Yeah, so I included this training visa into this presentation and into this event specifically because the training visa can be a really good stepping stone when people are not quite ready. So that's what I mentioned earlier. We use different visa types, such as the training visa, such as the student visa, to get people where they need to be. Yeah, how the training visa works, just really briefly, is it is similar to a sponsored visa because you need a company, an organization to provide the training. Yeah, and then you can work for the employer who is sponsoring you on the training visa. So that can be a really good option for both parties. for the applicant as well as for the business. Because sometimes I have business clients, they really want that they really want that applicant, that candidate, because they are amazing in what they're doing, especially in the IT and tech. I think oftentimes qualifications can be really overrated. People can be amazing in their work, what they do, without a qualification, and so the training visa can really be a good in-between solution
Halfway,
to get
yeah.
correct, to get people where they need to be, to then do the skills assessment and apply for the skill visa and so on, because
and it with training, sorry, just double checking, training need to be sponsored by the employer, so you need to find
yes,
the employer who will sponsor the training.
yes.
And it's like a particular length for that, or is it few
yes
years?
So there's different options. So on average, it can be up to 2 years, the training visa. And that can be, oftentimes what I find is that applicants, they usually need 1 year, 2 years of work experience to prove, so that they can go to the next step with regards to either the employer-sponsored visa or the skilled visa to get to, for example, permanent residency, which is the goal for many people. Like most of our clients, they have the aim to become a permanent resident of Australia, and then afterwards a citizen of Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all this. I think we have so I'm just trying to click through the questions. The questions just keep coming, so it would be good if we try to answer to a few. I think there's two really similar questions from Chris and Pedro. So I'll maybe mention them both. So Chris basically asking, we are currently on student visa in Canberra. What's the best path to permanent residency after school? And Pedro has a bit of a more specific, is it possible for students who had a previous experience and background in IT get their skill assessment by ICS, study diploma of IT of 92 weeks and apply for 485 visa? So here's one pathway for Chris,
Yeah. So Pedro's question is very specific. It sounds that Pedro has definitely thought about it, and maybe has talked to Migration Nation before. That's quite a specific question. Again, I just really need more background to it. In general, diploma of IT is usually not sufficient. So just to quickly explain the education system in Australia. So a diploma is part of the vocational education in Australia. So it's not a bachelor degree, it's not university. And what I find is most IT and tech occupations that are on the skills list, they are skill level 1, and that means they require a bachelor degree. So not often, but sometimes we have clients come in for consultation, and then they're studying a diploma of IT, and there is not a lot. It all depends, like sometimes with previous experiences, like previous qualifications and so on, there can be, we can do some magic around it. But I would say in general, IT and tech occupations, they do require a higher level of education. Yes, so for Pedro, I would say you're more than welcome to book in for a consultation, and then we can really go through this pathway that you clearly have thought about, which is really, really admirable. And then who was the other person?
Chris just asking,
Chris.
what's the best pathway usually? I guess what's a general pathway?
So we get these kind of inquiries a lot as well. It's quite a generic question, because I don't know what Chris is studying. The fact that he's studying in Canberra, that already gives me some information. So he's in the jurisdiction of the ACT. And so just generally speaking, without knowing, maybe let's assume you study a bachelor in IT. But in general, if you're looking for pathway to permanent residency, and if you are a student, from there, usually the next step would be the subclass 485, which is the graduate visa. Again, it's not for every student. You have to meet certain requirements. But especially if you study a bachelor degree, you should be eligible for the 485, which then gives you full-time work rights, which means that's, really important to collect your points in the points test later on. And also, again, generally speaking, when you study in one state or territory in Australia, I also recommend to then stay in that state and territory, unless obviously you get a really, really great offer interstate somewhere. But that's why it's really important you need to do a lot of thinking and big decision making before you start this whole process. Yeah, before you decide for an education provider, before you decide for a subject to study, because it all builds up on each other. So it is really important where you study and what you study. So in that instance, Canberra, I would definitely look for options and opportunities in the ACT, because states and territories, they incentivize their graduates. So currently, for example, most states, they incentivize and prioritize their graduates. So yes, but again, Chris, I would need more information in regards to what you study and what kind of course.
Yeah. The questions keep coming up. I'm cautious about the time. I think we still have 15 minutes, so we can probably try to briefly answer some questions. There's a question that I can answer here. Actually, Mohammed is saying, I'm Australian permanent resident, but for some roles in my tech professional, there is a requirement for NV1 or NV2 baseline security clearance. How does it work for non-citizens? It doesn't work, Mohammed. Sorry, there is just a quick answer. Unfortunately, there is no way around it. If you're not a citizen, you can't apply for NV1. And even applying for NV1, it's a vicious circle, because unless you get a government job, you can't apply for NV1. So it's like the catch-20, catch-22.
Yeah.
I do recruit sometimes for federal government. Yes, definitely there is no way around it. So if you're not a citizen, your application not even going to be considered. Tatiana is asking, what's the difference between global talent and skill visas? And what's the difference between skilled 189 and 190 and 489 visa? And is it possible to apply for all of these three types? Mm-hmm. Is there any quick answer to that?
Look, I could talk for hours, for days, really, about immigration law and visas. I do like that question because it brings up it brings up everything, really. Yeah. But especially the global talent visa, which I also had in my list of visas that I wanted to at least mention as an option for professionals in the IT and tech sector, because so the global talent visa can be a really good visa option if you are really, at a prestige level in your career. So meaning you are really well published, published in articles, in journals and so on. And it's not just for anyone. So that's why it says, global talent. So Australia is using that specific visa type to really handpick the creme de la creme of certain occupations. So there's only 5 or 6 different sectors for the global talent, and ICT is one of the sectors. So if you are now watching this and you are a person who is well established in your career in IT or tech, and you are well known in your industry, then the global talent visa could be a really, really good option. One, it has lots of perks because it gives you permanent residency without having to go through a lot of hoops, and there's no age limit. That is a topic we haven't mentioned yet. So one big criteria for many visas is age. So for most permanent visas, the age limit is 45.
So really, I'm actually asking these questions. I'm
Yeah.
application software engineer, and I'm 45 years old. Does this mean that company-sponsored visa basically out of the question for me?
No, it's not actually. So 45 is kind of the cutoff age for most visa types when it comes to permanent residency. 4H2 has no age limit. However, the 4H2 is only a temporary/provisional visa, which can lead to PR. But in order to then apply for PR, you have to be under 45. So yeah, but there is a solution, and that is one of my favorite personal visa types. It sounds really nerdy, but I'm here with my IT and techies, so I'm in a safe space. So one of my favorite visa types is actually the DAMA visa. So DAMA. It is an employer-sponsored visa, and it is in regional areas. In most regional areas around Australia now. It started off in the Northern Territory. And we have been doing DAMAs from the get-go because I used to live in the Northern Territory. And so I know that visa really well, and we're assisting a lot of employers and applicants with that visa. And so that visa has a so-called age concession, which can get, visa applicants can be up to 55 years old and they can still reach their PR. And then also, as I mentioned just now, the Global Talent Visa doesn't really have an age limit. Once you're over 55, there has to be another extra submission for it. But again, there's so many misconceptions when it comes to visas and immigration because there's so many people talking about it and rumors, and then, oh, my friend did this and so on. But the misconception is 45 this is the end. It's not. So there is still visa options, but you have to go a different way. Yes.
Yeah.
And just to,
yeah. I'm just coming back to Tatiana's 189, 190, and
yes.
491 visas.
Yes. Just to start at the end, is it possible to apply for all of these visa types? It actually, yes, is possible. Not so much. So I would definitely, again, recommend to make a decision between the 189 and the 190 and the 491. But hypothetically, yes, you can apply for all of them. But mind you, every time you apply for something, you also have to pay, usually you have to pay fees. So it can get a bit expensive if you pay the fees every time. But the department lets you apply. And so the big difference really between the 189 and the others is that the 189 is the skilled independent visa. And as the name says, independent. So that means no employer, no state, just solely you and your skills. So it's also a points-based visa, and it is quite competitive, but IT and tech professionals definitely, that is one of the major visa types that they're going for, and that we suggest and recommend for our clients in that space. So if someone is qualifying for the 189, we recommend that over the 190 and the 491. Because with the 190 and 491, it's state sponsored. So there's just always that little, that dependency and just an extra hurdle that you have to overcome. But having said that, the 190 and the 491 are really good options, and especially currently states have been rolling out their new programs. Because they have been allocated the new numbers in regards to the nominations that they can give out, and so the 190 is a permanent visa. So once it's approved, boom, you have PR straight away. And the 491 is what's called a provisional visa. So you get it, and then after 3 years, that is when you can apply for PR.
Guys, so many different options, and there's so many different questions coming through. I feel like we need to run like a series of that. Like, I knew, guys, you always asking a lot of questions on this topic, so that's the reason, you know, I reached out to Manuela, because it's definitely the burning topic. Okay, so I'm just cautious about the time. Okay, that's a big question, but maybe we can give a really quick answer. So Alexander's saying, I have a German master degree in electrical engineering. I'm a self-employed in IT, electronics, and automated business in Germany. If I understand you right, I can get a visa only with my skills and education. Would it be then possible to move my existing business and open a new business in Australia? I think, can we just answer yes or no quickly? Because that's like, again, probably the whole scenario there. Theoretically, can you, on a skilled visa, if you apply for skilled visa and you get a permanent residency, then you basically can do anything you want. Is it correct or not?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. Yes. So once you are a permanent resident, so the permanent residency is that step just before citizenship. You don't need citizenship to, you know, live and work in Australia for the rest of your life, really. There is a small difference, like especially if you travel overseas, you have to renew your PR every 4 years. But other than that, yes, once you have your PR, permanent residency, that is when you can live anywhere you want. You can work, you cannot work, you can work in IT, you can work in law, you can not work, you can run a business. You can pretty much do whatever you want. So that was a big question, but so my understanding was that the person is thinking to come here on a skilled visa and then transfer his business over. Yeah, that's totally possible. There's
as long as you don't not doing the sponsorship, yes. As long as you're doing skilled visa, then so then you don't need to be connected to any employer.
Yeah.
If you just get if you get enough points,
There's also so just for transparency, there's business visas in the Australian immigration system. However, and they used to be really popular and really also incentivized and enforced and promoted by the Australian government, but not so much at the moment due to the pandemic, post-pandemic, and supporting the Australian economy and so on, and Australian businesses. Currently business visas, because it's all allocation based and there's not many allocation for business visas as such. Otherwise, I mean, maybe one day it comes back. Well, surely it will come back, that's the thing with immigration. And again, that's what I love so much about the change, it's just constantly changing. So one day skilled visas are prioritized, and then the next day it's global talent visa, and then it's business visas. It's just, constant change. It's constantly evolving and constantly changing. So nothing really stays the same over a long period of time. That's why when we have people call up or say, oh, but my friend did this and that. And I'm like, yes, well, different times, different laws, different everything.
Different situation.
When I migrated 2009, it was so different to what it's like now. And also now as a professional migration agent, I can I've been really experiencing the change over months and years. And
Crazy. There's definitely no reason to, when people ask me, and I moved like in 2009 as well, and like, look, it's changed, and the prices was different as well. The prices, kind of like not going together with inflation.
Yes.
They have their own pathway.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think let's just quickly answer this question. It's just too many, but okay, last one. I promise, last one. I'm just cautious about time. Graham is saying, I have an IT master's degree from Victoria. I have 4 years of overseas work experience, but currently not working in IT field. Is there a pathway, or would I need to have an active IT job offer?
Okay, well, firstly, it's really great that you have a IT master's degree from Victoria in Australia, and then you have 4 years of overseas work experience in IT, but currently not working in IT. Is that pathway? So again, I would need to know more details, but just now assuming it's really important that you don't let the time in between you working in IT and you not working in IT, don't let that be too much time, because if it's too much of a gap, that could cause problems. Yeah. So when, for example, you apply for your skills assessment and also for visas, they usually look at your work experience in the past 5 years. So within the last 5 years, you have to have had work experience in the relevant field. But it sounds to me that it's been recent and only currently you're not working in your field. In general, I do recommend, and I know it's not always easy. Like when I came to Australia first, for 2 years, I wasn't working really in my field because it's obviously you're competing with Australians, with other applicants and so on, but always try to get into your field. Don't get comfortable working a different job, because I know it does pay the bills and it may even be fun, but especially if you are a student or graduate, or a temporary visa holder, I do recommend to keep your goal in mind and focus on that, and keep applying for jobs and keep networking. So to that person just now, Graham, I think it was, I highly recommend to pursue a career and a position in IT, because that will definitely support you and help you with the process. Yeah.
Just get the foot in the door. Okay, guys, it's only 3 minutes left. We can't take any more questions. I know there's a few more questions. You are more than welcome to take it offline. There's actually some questions also from other side. We don't have time to cover that, but what about if you want to sponsor someone? I feel like it's a whole big separate topic. But if you do have more questions, so you can obviously connect with Manuela on on all the social media and also head over to her website. But also for everyone who listened to us today, there is a special discount code as well for her personalized consultations. Manuela, do you want to just mention a little bit what sort of consultations you provide at the moment?
Yes. So we offer a consultation service, and we do charge a fee for it, and you get a lot of value for it. So we run our consultations on Zoom. So no matter where you are in the world, if you are in Australia or if you're overseas, we connect with you on Zoom. We speak with you. We map out the pathway to whatever you need and whatever you want. Usually it's the pathway to permanent residency. You will be provided with a written summary of advice and also a written quote of the relevant visa assistance, how much it all costs, and so on. So you have everything in writing, mapped out, and the discount code is IT Career AU, just as you can see it here on the screen. It is valid for 7 days. So until next Wednesday, the 18th of October, you will get 10% discount. So this is for all people who have registered for this event. So if you're now watching it live or if you're watching the replay, if it's within the 18th of October, feel free to use the discount code. Either scan the QR code or go to our website. And if you are onshore, book a domestic consultation. If you're offshore, book an international consultation. And then, like I said, it's not just me. I have a whole team behind me, beside me. We are lawyers, immigration agents, and also education agents. And we deal with all visa types: student visa, employer-sponsored, training visa, skilled, global talent, all the things. Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to assist, and I would also love to come back, considering that there are so many questions. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, find me and connect with me, and always happy to connect.
Perfect. People saying thank you guys, thank you from Graham, thank you from James. Alexander saying thank you for advice, nice evening. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We try to answer as many questions as we could. So please remember, I'm going live at the moment every Wednesday night. So we have another guest on the 18th of October. I'm going to talk with Stephen. If you're in IT, you probably met Stephen because he's a BOps co-founder. I'm sure like every person in IT in Melbourne and Sydney at least heard about BOps at least once. It does get crowded there. Yes, it's. I think last time I went to Melbourne and the BOps, there was, I don't know, 1,000 people there, and the line was like the whole Collins Street. So I'm already registered for next one. So Stephen is coming to my channel next week on 18th of October, and we're going to talk about how to master effective networking to progress in your IT career. I'm sure a lot of you went to BOps and other events like that, but never really make that meaningful connections that help you to, actually progress. And if you're just coming to everyone and saying, I want a job, that's probably not gonna help you. So anyway, so make sure to join us next week. We're going to talk with Stephen about it. And I also already posted the face-to-face event, guys. So if you're in Melbourne, you can join me on Saturday, 18th of November. So it's already still a month away, but I'm just, giving you advance notice. So if you want to meet me in real life, here's your chance. It's in Melbourne in Albert Park on the 18th of November. Francis saying thank you for your help. Tatiana saying thank you guys so much again for joining us. Obviously, feel free to reach out to Manuela on LinkedIn if you have some quick questions, or make sure to book the full consultations if you're actually in the process of getting visa. And I'm sure you will benefit from actually having a professional advice and maybe find some options that you didn't even think about by the sound of it. So there is definitely quite a few options there. And Manuela, thank you so much for your time. And just to finish this session today, could you please share with us, going to put you on the spot here, can you please share with us just your favorite inspirational quote, or maybe just, some statement you live by, anything that inspires you?
Yeah. Okay. So for example, I have lots and lots. What inspires me is to have a vision, and if you call it a vision, if you call it a dream, and because I know what it's like, especially with regards to immigration in Australia, all the challenges, just really visualize and stay with your dream, and you grow from challenges. You see challenges as an opportunity to grow, and stay with it. Get help where you can, get assistance, and you get there. Never give up. Always focus and keep going.
And I'm sure every of us has this crazy story of our friend trying to get a permanent residency for 10 years, and finally we're going to the citizen ceremony. I definitely have a few friends like that. Who just been going through circles and circles, jumping from visa to visa, but finally got there. So guys, never give up. It's could be sometimes a bit challenging, but just face your challenges, dream big and go for it. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Hope it was helpful for everyone, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.